You're watching Washington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
We're back. State Representative Danny McComas is talking to us about what's happening in Raleigh, and there's a lot happening. You mentioned that you were against increasing taxes and additional burden on folks. So the other option is cutting spending. Can you give me some specific examples of where you think some significant spending issues could have been dealt with, some cuts could have been made?
Don, there was a lot of one-time money that's not part of the general fund. And I do believe that one-time money, instead of going ahead and letting all of these capital projects to go ahead and proceed, construction, renovations, what should have been done maybe perhaps is take that money, and this is just an example, and use those monies to pay down debt, thus reducing your debt servicing costs. That's one example. There are also many grants that are made to many nonprofits and other entities throughout the state. We should have cut back on that. We only, that's a luxury, and we can only do so much. And this is a year of austerity. We didn't do that. And the list goes on and on and on. We should have started looking at this way back then after we saw the downturn coming. And we should have been prepared, and we should have made some cuts as we have done in business. And most businesses have, when they're faced with adversity, they say, hey, we don't have a choice. We have some luxuries that we're going to have to do away with this time. And you do it for the time being.
The spending gap with
we would have been very close to it. I feel very comfortable in saying that.
What's your take on the bill that was defeated in the Senate to place a moratorium on cement plant construction in North Carolina? It never made it to the House, but I'm curious as to your take on it.
The bill was not defeated to the Senate. It was re-referred to committee, and I understand there's language that's being drafted to deal with it.
It was sent to committee and it wasn't defeated?
It was not defeated. Okay. It is in committee. I believe it's the Rules Committee in the Senate. We do have a companion bill in the House, and that bill is in, I want to say, Environment Committee, if I'm not mistaken.
Will it ever get out?
And I think one of those two will be coming out in the next week or two. I know there's been communications with the Department of Environment, Health, and Natural Resources, along with negotiations with the Department of Commerce as to what the language should be. Insofar as the issue about that, I have made no secret about the fact that what is the message that we're selling to other industry, and that troubles me. But what troubles me is that there are issues such as there's talk about, well, we're pumping all this mercury out within 1.5 miles of this school. And I say, well, that is true, but we are also having an incinerator out there that's putting out more mercury than this plant would be putting out within 0.5 mile of Wrightsboro School as the crow flies. So let's not just focus on this, let's look at the big picture. And let's not look at this from a tunnel and just say, well, just because these people are coming in, let's look at everything.
So you would oppose a moratorium, the moratorium bill?
I can't say that I would oppose it. I think we need to do the right thing for the people of New Hanover County and look at the whole thing, look at the big picture. And I have tried, and myself and Representative Justice, we have met with the cement and the environmentalist, and we've had numerous meetings. And I think if we were able to continue that, we could find a happy medium. We even discussed about maybe the incinerator needs to be the trash incinerator that we have for the county. Maybe we could go ahead and merge that with the cement plant, let them use the heat generated by that, and thus we don't have any net increase in mercury emissions. So that is just an example. We're talking of hydrogen chloride, ammonium chloride coming out of the stack. So that's another issue.
About the bill for a moratorium on annexation, where does that stand? I know you were a great proponent.
We have this week, we've had a number of committee meetings regarding that, and I'm not a member of those committees, but I have been watching them, and I'm hopeful that something will emerge from committee, and we'll be able to do something. I think our annexation laws are, I mean, you come in and you take over a community and there's no representation, and all of a sudden their taxes are doubled, and then you have an expansion of, you know, the city's gonna have to provide law enforcement, but then the county doesn't provide law enforcement, so, but the county budget does not. The sheriff's budget is not reduced by a like amount. So these are things that need to be looked into the context of what is annexation. The fact does not escape me that when we had that annexation back in the late 90s, look at Hardy Parker's farm, and we talked about it, and we say, hey, this is progress, but I mean, that annexation caused that farm to have to sell, and look at the development that's come in and the pressure it's put on our infrastructure. So these are things that need to be considered.
Yeah, I've been kind of following this somewhat, and some of the proposals to reform the system of annexation in North Carolina seem to center more on guidelines rather than allowing citizens to vote, the bottom line. To tweak the guidelines of what it takes to annex and how long it takes to provide services, rather than should folks have the right to vote on the fate of their communities. Would you favor a direct vote by citizens?
Absolutely, no offense or buts about it, and I think, you know, it would put the cities, people say, well, if the people have to vote for it, it's gonna cost the cities to then not be able to annex. And I say, no, not exactly. It would have to cost the city to do a better sales job as to telling the people this is what we're going to provide you. And let's not escape the fact that you'll be able to get sewer service, water service, treated water, good water, law enforcement. Well, you can say it's sheriff or the other, it's one or the other, but what about trash disposal? What about, you know, structured development? And these are things that would come to play, and let the city do a better sales job.
Of course, only a handful of states allow annexation, forced annexation anyway.
We're one of the toughest. I think we're one of the two toughest in the nation.
We're going to come back and chat more about what's happening in Raleigh. We'll ask our guest, Danny McComas, about the job Governor Perdue's doing. Stay with us. We'll be right back.